Alright, so welcome back to Empires of the Void 2. So we've talked about the four main actions of the game. There's one more action that you can take on the action track, and that is called scavenge, okay? Scavenge is actually basically refresh. And so whenever a player chooses to refresh, they're in a sense doing a scavenge. So if you choose scavenge, you're in a sense doing refresh. So scavenge isn't the most popular on the action track because most likely you'll be doing refresh from time to time anyways, so choosing scavenge is only chosen if you have no choice because you don't have command to move an attack, and you don't have command to do certain actions with card actions here, and you don't have enough money to build, and you don't have enough goods to research or cards to research with, or for that matter, if the recruit here, for recruiting, if you don't have enough money to recruit, obviously scavenge might be the only action you can take. And of course, if players chose to do any action instead of refresh, they would have to pay 2 command to do an any action thing if they chose refresh like normal. But usually normal you're going to choose refresh anyways. So refresh is going to happen quite a bit, and scavenge is only something for desperate players who have no other choice but to choose it if it's even available. Which, if the if the big giant cylinder is already on there, if this is already there, obviously you can't choose it. But still, that's something to note. So what does refresh do? What are you going to do when you do the refresh action, or scavenge for that matter? What's going to happen? Well, if you have used up a lot of command, which is most likely the case, you're going to refresh it. So that means, for instance, if my command was almost completely depleted, I would get to replenish it all the way back to here. That's something I would get to do. That's one of the things you get to do when you do a refresh. What's another thing? You're going to get a certain amount of credits. So if you're playing a 7-player game, and this is what I've got, I'd get 7 credits. If you're playing with more than 2 players, you're going to get 5 credits. And if you have built some cities, you're going to get more credits than that, obviously. That's another thing that's going to happen. Also another thing that's going to happen, if you have only a couple of cards left, or only 1 card or no cards left, so these cards here, if I've used them all, if I've used all these cards and now they're gone and they've been used, I will get to draw up to my hand limit. So if I have none, I'd get to draw 3 more of these, okay? And that, of course, will quicken the game, because every time you take a refresh, this pile here is going to deplete, and it's going to trigger the end of game much sooner, because after all, the game has to be triggered this way. So refreshing is something that's going to take place quite a bit, because when you do this, you're going to draw a certain amount of cards. You're going to be using cards, of course, for a variety of different things, attacking, etc., etc. And so eventually the scorecard's going to show up. Eventually this entire pile here is going to deplete, and it's going to be gone, and that's going to trigger the end of the game. So that's something you're going to do. You're going to draw more of these cards, and maybe some events might show up too. Who knows? But that's another thing you'll be doing. So those are the things that you'll be doing if you choose scavenge, or if you're just simply refreshing. You're going to get more credits, you're probably going to get some more cards, you're going to replenish your command, and that's what you're going to do. It's as simple as that. That's the simplest action. Those 3 things, and that's about it. That's all you do with scavenge, or with refresh for that matter. So that's what you're going to do. And so I've pretty much explained the majority of the game. Let's just do a brief overview of where you're going to score your points. Okay? So when you score points on the scorecard, or at the end of the game, you're going to score points for all the different buildings you've built will unlock some more extra victory points. So you'll get some points that way. If you've researched some technologies, you're going to get some points. And of course, you might get extra victory points for some of these technologies too. Just having them might give you extra victory points, maybe. You're going to get extra victory points for the bases. If you've built some of them, you're going to get extra victory points if you've built some cities as well. If you have allies, and you have the most influence on a planet, if you have the most influence on a planet, you're going to get victory points for that. If you control a planet, you're going to get victory points for that. Okay, that's the same thing for planets that have no life forms. You're going to get victory points for uninhabited worlds to boot that you control. So that's basically a planet that you can attack that's safe to attack that you're going to get victory points for. And then, of course, you're going to get victory points for these cards as well that you might have been able to complete or control or etc., etc. You're going to get victory points for that as well. So, and then obviously the player who has the most victory points when the game is over wins the game. So that's basically, I think, everything to explain that's worth explaining in this game. Well, there's obviously a lot to explain besides everything I talked about. There's still lots. I mean, I didn't explain the events at all. So, let's see here. Here's an event. So if this event shows up, Hecrix Invasion, this is one of the possible events. If this is your first game playing the game, this is probably an event you'll eventually end up playing with. And let's read it. It says, strange beings from afar have come to invade the planet. The effect is you'll place 2 Hecrix invaders in orbit here. So there's some tokens that say Hecrix on them that show what they look like. You're going to place them in orbit on this planet. Then, if a player wins a battle against them, they place 2 influence here. So 2 influence on Setna. They gain a victory point. So they automatically just gain a victory point. They gain 1 random good. So that's cool too. And then they discard this and the Hecrix tokens that were there. So that basically completes this event. So some events can be completed. Tanfu here, so the reptile people, the lizard folk, they have, this is another event that you'll probably play with on your first game, Hexite Market. The Council of Tribes has decided to export Hexite crystals to help them fund their efforts against the Mazrons. Now, if I didn't explain this, Measle 3 is where the Mazrons come from, and they're mortal enemies. Okay? So the effect is when you end movement in orbit of Tanfu, you may pay 1 credit to gain 1 random good. Whew, I like that. The Hexite Market, that's pretty cool. So that's a pretty cool event you could get. So here's Corlozon's event that you could possibly end up playing with. Orbital Vagabond Station. Lost explorers form a station from hundreds of starships. The effect, immediately place the Vagabond station in orbit. When any player recruits, they may recruit to the Corlozan orbit region. So that's kind of an interesting effect. You don't have to be on the planet, but this effect allows you to recruit units to that location, even though you don't actually own the planet or have any spaceships there or people there. That's a pretty cool event. At least that's what I think is what it's talking about. Then we have Arzos here. Merchant Guild forms. Powerful mining companies have banded together to form an alliance. This is here. You can purchase a random good for 2 credits. You can pay an additional 3 credits to add 1 influence to Arzos. So that's something you can do that's extra. Here's revitalization efforts for Measle 3. Their planet is highly toxic and highly polluted. Wealthy corporations are beginning to reclaim some of the abandoned sectors of their factory-covered planet. I wonder why some areas are abandoned. Obviously, it's more toxic in other areas. Effect, anytime a player takes control of Measle 3 surface, they may immediately build a building, even if there is already one on the planet. That's a cool effect. Normally, you have to take the action to build in order to build a building and put it on a planet. This is allowing you to basically skip that by simply attacking the planet and controlling it, you automatically get to build a building and place it on the planet, even if there's already a building there. So this is an awesome event. So that's really cool. I like this one a lot. Of course, you still have to pay the cost. You'd still need to be able to pay the cost to do so. So those are the various events that will likely, possibly come your way. Of course, there's still obviously some events, other events that possibly will show up if you're playing with certain planets. Because after all, the events that aren't in here are the ones that have the Supreme Regency tokens on them. So maybe you have different planets with Supreme Regency tokens. But that's basically all I wanted to talk about. So I hope this is good enough to sort of teach you how this game works and functions and how you can play the game and how you can score points and all that. It doesn't fully this doesn't fully explain the game fully. You're still probably going to want to watch someone play the game or someone else explain some more finer details, or you're still probably going to have to look up a lot of the details, especially for these cards here in the game as you play. But at least this gives you a better understanding how the game functions, how you can take the various actions, what you do with the various actions, what you have to have in order to complete the various actions, and all that. So hopefully, if you liked any of these videos, or this video in particular, or any of them in particular, don't hesitate to leave a like on any of the videos that you watched. It'll help me out big time. And thank you guys so much for watching this video and the other videos. Now, I probably won't do a gameplay video on this game, at least not anytime soon. But at least I managed to at least teach you guys how to play this game. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys again next time.